Hey guys, Brian delivers you the goods here. I believe this is going to be a premiere video for the 20th, of course. Sometime around 5 or 6, maybe sooner, I don't know. I got to see when I can get it premiered and get it done, of course. So, this is for the worst albums of 2022 official end of the year video. So, it's no so far list. No, none of that. It's the official worst albums of 2022 video. And I know I usually start them the end of the year videos like mid November and all that. I just didn't come around to doing it because I wanted to wait on this Nickelback album to see how it would turn out. And yeah, let's get started with this worst albums of 2022 video. So I'm going to discuss what from numbers 21 to 1, whatever number I get to in this video. Of course, if I have to make a part 2, I will, and let you know my thoughts on each album. So let's dive into the first one, which is number 21, Nickelback Get Rolling. Now, I was disappointed with this album only because, well, at least it's not the worst album of the year, but it is on the worst albums. I was disappointed with this album because of the fact that it some of the songs seemed cheesy. Two of them in particular. High Time was just cringe all around. It wasn't great of a track. Vegas Bomb was just garbage. It disappointed me that they put out a record that didn't do very well. There were quite a bit of stronger tracks, but those two tracks really brought the rating for this album down. You can definitely go check out my album review for the Nickelback Get Rolling if you haven't seen it. I know there's been some people that have been disliking. I'm like, it's whatever. I'm like, this is just my opinion. So at number 21, I picked Nickelback Get Rolling. There were some songs off that album that I did kind of like. Tidal Wave not being my favorite. Those Days was a little weak, but not too weak. It was average. And I believe Standing in the Dark and Just One More were 4 out of 5 kind of songs. And the rest of the tracks, they were solid. So, yeah, I think from tracks 7 to 9, that's where the album starts to get a little bit better. And I was like impressed with it. I was like, okay, this is something. So, yeah, number 21, Nickelback Get Rolling. Number 20 is Pale Waves with Unwanted. I just was disappointed with this release from them. Um, Entire Lifetime Alone, or whatever that song was called, Alone, I think. And then there's Unwanted, which I personally think is a solid track. It's not the best song on there, and Clean is not a bad song either. It took a little time to grow on me, but this album had a song called You're So Vain. It really ruined how the album was going to sound, and it ruined its reception for this album. And this made it on the worst albums because of the fact, and there were a few other tracks that just didn't execute very well, in my opinion, like Jealousy and the first track. Can't remember what the first track was called. Lies, I believe it was called, if I remember correctly. So I think the song Reasons to Live was not a bad song. It wasn't the best song, but it was something. So at number 20, I picked Pale Waves with Unwanted. Number 19 is Thornhill with Heroin. Now, the Raw song I kind of did think was fine. And I know there was someone that was following my channel that is a super fan of Thornhill. I'm like, if you don't like my review personally, then why'd you watch it? It's plain and simple. Why'd you watch it if you knew you weren't gonna like it? This is just my opinion, and I guess the person got butthurt, so I'm like, oh well, fuck that person. So that's just my opinion overall. And sorry, I got a ding message from someone, so please forgive me on that. Um, yeah, Thornhill Heroin was a very disappointing album this year, in my opinion. But I don't want to be mean and call out people and say fuck that person or whatever. I'm like, I have not talked to that person since after my review of that album. So, and she hated my guts, of course. And I'm like, you know what, whatever. So it made it on the worst albums. I personally couldn't connect with this album in any way. I think the vocals were just too moany in this album by Jacob, and also just the execution of it, just the sound quality of this album wasn't very well produced. And that kind of ruined how the album was sounding. So, number 19, I picked Thornhill with Heroin. Number 18 is Guns N' Roses Hard School EP. This was a disappointing release that they came out with earlier this year. I wasn't a big fan of this. There was only like 4 songs. 2 of them were like cover songs from older songs of theirs, and the other 2 tracks were regular tracks, but I wasn't a fan of this EP. So, and Axl Rose kind of sucked in the cover tracks for sure when he was singing them. I was like, this is just bad. And Guns N' Roses have had their time, so I think it's time for them to wrap it up, in my personal opinion. But hey, if they want to keep going, that's their choice. But this was not a good release, and I hope they can release something better. But for now, number 18 is Guns N' Roses Hard School EP. Number 17 is Maya Hawke with Moss. Now, I think this was a disappointing record. It's not the worst thing this year, but it is disappointing for how it sounded. And her vocals were kind of cringy, in my opinion. And I was not connecting with this album in any way. I was just like, it sounds cheesy. So I gave it like a 5.5 out of 10, this album. But in my personal opinion, it was something. So number 17 is Maya Hawke with Moss. Number 16 is The Game with Dramatic Heart versus Mind. Now, he had that diss song for Eminem, something Slim Shady, the real Slim Shady or whatever, or however he titled the song. It was just, he's being a fuck boy right now, in my personal opinion, and he needs to get his shit together and be kind of make amends to Eminem and stop beefing with people. So that's my personal opinion. Even if he watches my worst albums, I don't really give a fuck. I don't like the game anymore. Um, kind of sold out after the last few albums. And his music has not been well received from certain critics. Some have been. I think the album The Red and the Jesus Peace album were solid records, but after that, I just didn't follow him after that because I didn't care to follow his music afterwards. So, yeah, Drillmatic Heart versus Mine was bad. It's not a great album. It was a long album, but it wasn't good. So, yeah, I gave it like a 5 out of 10. You can definitely go check out my review for it I did earlier this year, back in August. I think you might enjoy it. So, number 16 is The Game with Drillmatic Heart versus Mine. Number 15 is Weezer with Season Spring EP. Now, this was a disappointing release. It was just bad all around. I was hoping this wouldn't have been bad. A Little Bit of Love was cringy. The Sound of Drums was cringy. I think anything Weezer puts out, you know it's gonna be cringe. Some of it. But then there's gonna be some songs that are solid and on the fence with certain people. But yeah, at least their Autumn EP wasn't that bad. I, but you'll see it on the OK to Matt albums of 2022 in the next few weeks or so. So yeah, number 15 was Weezer's Season Spring EP. I just didn't like how it was produced, and sonically it didn't sound very well produced and mixed, in my opinion. Number 14 is Black Eyed Peas with Elevation. Now, this was a pretty bad album, and there were some songs on here that made me cringe so much. And I was really torn to have to put it on my worst albums. So, sorry, I thought I heard my phone dinging for a moment. So, if it does ding, I'll have to pause this video or try to stop this video or whatever. But still, Elevation was not a good album. It was really not. Don't You Worry was the only track on here that I pretty much appreciated. And Simply the Best was the only solid track or decent song. It wasn't great, but it was something. So, yeah, at number 14, I picked Black Eyed Peas with Elevation. You can definitely go check out my album review for it that I did, like, I think last Friday, I believe, or last Thursday, I meant to say. So it was like 8 days ago I did that review, but it made it on the worst albums, of course, but still. I'm recording this on the 18th, but I'm gonna premiere it on the 20th at a certain time. So, number 13 is Chris Brown with Breezy. Oh my god, this dude just doesn't stop with the sexual lyricism, in my personal opinion. It's just, it's cringe, and he's out of ideas for lyrics. He's like, I'm gonna go deep in that pussy, or whatever the fuck he says. I'm like, that's fucking gross. I'm like, dude, uh, just wash your mouth out with soap, in my opinion. I'm just joking, but seriously, Chris Brown Breezy was not a good album. Iffy was shit. I couldn't stand this song, and there were some other tracks on here that really ruined the album's reception, like certain other songs, but it was a lengthy album, but I'm glad I didn't. I did hear the deluxe, and it brought the rating up to put it at this certain spot on my list. But still, the album didn't perform very well, in my opinion. It was all sexualized lyricism, and not to say that it's bad in a bad way, but it just doesn't work with the sound he's going for. So at number 13, I picked Chris Brown with Breezy. Number 12 is Skillet with Dominion. Now, at least this wasn't in my top 10. And there's a certain amount of people that might not like my number 10 spot, but you'll find out soon. But still, Skillet Dominion was pretty bad. The White Horse song really ruined the album's reception and how it was turning out performance-wise of the album. Shout Your Freedom is too cheery, and basically it's playing it on the safe side. And also, lyrics don't are cringe, and basically the sound and electronics are terrible in this song. Just don't mash well. It's like the electronic music in the background had a bipolar episode. And I'm not kidding. You can listen to Shout Your Freedom yourself. You'll hear that kind of thing. It's just annoying while the melody keeps going. It's just the electronic music in that song is garbage. So, yeah. And also, there were other songs. Surviving the Game, that was bad. Standing in the Storm. Dominion is growing on me, but it's not the best song. It just gets repetitive and cheesy. I think Skillet had their time, and it just, no, they're cringe now, so that's just my opinion. Sorry about the next ding. It's my messenger or whatever. So, yeah, number 12 is Skillet with Dominion. And definitely go check out my review I did earlier this year. You may enjoy it, and you may not. If you didn't like my review for Skillet Dominion, that's your personal choice. I just have my own opinion about it, and I did not like this album. Number 11 is the 1975 with Being Funny in a Foreign Language. This was a bad album all around. The song Part of the Band really ruined it. The first song the 1975 was kind of cringy with how I think I got a boner lyric, and I'm like, ugh, that's cringe already. And just really gross too. So I wasn't really feeling for that song, or I think there were certain other songs that were fine, but still. At number 11 was the 1975 with Being Funny in a Foreign Language. The last song, When We Are Together, or whatever the song name is. Um, yeah, it wasn't good and just didn't perform very well. So, number 11, I picked the 1975 with Being Funny in a Foreign Language. Number 10 is Soulfly with Totem. Now, I was not feeling for this album. Um, yeah, I know there's going to be some people that may disagree with my personal opinion on this and why I put it on the worst albums. I just personally didn't like Max Cavalera's screaming and angsty vocals with his angry vocals. It just didn't connect with me, in my opinion. And this album was bad only because of the last song. And the last song had a baby crying in it, or whatever it was. It was just vile, in my opinion, and out of taste and all that. It just didn't turn out very well, in my opinion. So at number 10 is Soulfly with Totem. So I'm going to have to return to you for the rest of the worst albums of 2022 for part 2. This is going to be part 1, of course. So hopefully you enjoyed majority of this. There's going to be 2 parts being premiered on certain times for uh, November 20th, of course. So until then, I hope you enjoyed this first part of Worst Albums of 2022 End of the Year video. I did the best I could to make this part as good as possible, and I will have part 2 coming out after I'm done recording this and getting it premiered for you guys. So until then, stay safe, take care, and I'll see you soon in part 2 that is premiering on the 20th. So I'll see you in part 2 very soon.